One of the things that devolution promised was that there'd be a better way of doing politics, and also there'd be room for policy innovation. And over the course of this week, Jack McConnell, a former Labour First Minister, made the point that the ban on smoking in public places was pioneered in Scotland, emulated elsewhere. I won't ask you to go through other things that have happened since devolution, because obviously the SNP have been in power for a long time. What are the sorts of things that you'd like to do in Scotland as First Minister that you think would be either trailblazing or different, that you would hope that other parts of the UK might learn from? So in what respect can Scotland be more reformist, more progressive, more innovative if you were First Minister?
Great question, Michael. So there's a few different parts of that. So I often think about what happens in Scotland in terms of, so take the economy first and foremost, is we have a rate system which is rigged against the high street and rigged against town centres and city centres. So how do we have an economic system that inspires entrepreneurship rather than holds entrepreneurship back? And so I think, again, we can be an example in Scotland of how we do economic policy differently. Almost every example that you probably quoted or has been quoted to you has been a social policy example of how Scotland's done something different compared to the rest of the UK and been an example to the rest of the UK. Why can't we do economic policy that's an example to the rest of the UK as well? So how we think about our high streets and our town centres, how we think about our housing market. So we've got a planning system in our country which is archaic and drives investment out of the country. How do we demonstrate we can make good, fast decisions and attract investment into this country? How do we think about skills differently? So Scotland used to lead the rest of the UK in terms of what it thought, how it dealt with literacy and numeracy. Why can't we be the AI leader for the UK? Why can't we be the digital leader for the UK? Why can't we be the advanced manufacturing leader for the UK when we think about our defence industry and our shipbuilding industry? Why can't we demonstrate how we're going to do supply chains differently when it comes to our energy infrastructure and the use of that energy infrastructure for the maximisation of benefit of our citizens? Why can't we be the world leaders in health innovation and technology rather than us saying we're 10 years behind the rest of the UK on an NHS app? Why can't we be the innovators making the new medicines of the future, having the new technology of the future, having the AI scanners of the future coming from Scotland and being an example to the rest of the UK? That's what I want Scotland to be. I want us to be the creative, innovative, entrepreneurial hub for the UK that can be replicated in other parts of the UK, not just the nice people, the great landscapes, all the rest of it, which I totally agree with. But I want us to be an example socially and economically.
So that is fascinating that in a way, I don't want to put anything on a left-right prism, but it's clear that you think that Scotland can show a more business-friendly, a more flexible, a more nimble approach towards economic growth, which the rest of the UK might seek to emulate. So a more business-friendly Scotland in a way.
Undoubtedly. And a good way of thinking about that, Michael, is if you think about the soft power of Scotland. So if you think about the soft power of Ireland, Ireland's done a great job of using its identity and its cultural tradition and its diaspora communities to attract investment, tourism into their nation. Why can't we do that by maintaining the strength of being part of the UK, but tapping into that strong Scottish identity to tap into our diaspora communities, particularly in North America, so we can have that tourism, we can attract that investment, and we can become the innovative entrepreneurial hub of the UK? I think we can totally do that, but it requires a different kind of thinking here in Scotland.
Energy is obviously a critical issue across the United Kingdom. The policy that Ed Miliband has made central to Labour's economic mission has seen jobs go in the northeast. He's been clear that there should be no new drilling in the North Sea. But of course, also he's clear that in making that case, there is a significant opening for investment in renewables, an area where obviously Scotland has significant potential. Do you worry that the long-term vision that Ed Miliband has for the UK and for Scotland's energy infrastructure actually creates a short-term cost, which is difficult, and that it may be an obstacle to people voting Labour in these Holyrood elections?
So I think we've got to have a more balanced approach. On that part, I will agree. But we also have to look at the facts. in almost every year of the last UK government, the number of workers in oil and gas fell across the UK and in Scotland because it is a declining basin. And so that is going to happen. But what the transition is really, really important. And I think there is a risk that we're not getting the balance of transition in terms of not just the promise of jobs, but the actual jobs, so people can go directly from one role into another without losing their kind of terms and conditions in terms of the quality of pay, but also in terms of the geographic impact that has, particularly for Aberdeen and the North East. There's a few different things within it, Michael, that I think needs to be addressed. One is, yes, we made a commitment that there be no new oil and gas licenses, but the commitment was also made to honour all existing oil and gas licenses. And there were oil and gas licenses that were granted that have then further, since the election, been put into question. I think we should honour those licenses because that was a commitment that was made, and they were licenses that were granted before, and that will help protect investment and jobs in Aberdeen and the North East. Secondly, it's not one or the other. We do have to embrace the clean energy revolution, but
what would you say to a voter if they said, Anas, I like what you say. I'm naturally Labour. I want a Labour government in Scotland, but I'd like Scotland to be independent. How should I vote in this Holyrood election?
Look, you know my view on independence, Michael. I don't support independence. I don't support a referendum. But one of the things I will be saying repeatedly in this election campaign is, even if you disagree with me on independence, I'm not asking you to change your mind. I'm not asking you, if you're a lifelong believer, for example, in independence, to say that I want to change my mind or my belief on what Scotland's final destination is. That's for Scotland to decide. I'm making my position clear. I don't support independence. I don't support a referendum. But what I'm asking those same people is, look at the condition of Scotland right now. Do we think this is as good as it gets? Our country is not working, and this government's had its chance and it's lost its way. So let's work together now to make Scotland better right now. And in the future, if a stronger Scotland wants to make a different decision on what its destination is, that's for them. But right now, let's work together to make Scotland better.